I want to start by narrating what happens to me these days when I'm chatting with my friends. And I'm not talking about chatting on WhatsApp, but when I'm having conversations, either physically or on phone. Typically when I'm talking to my friends, be they be my batchmates, neighbors, often colleagues, the conversation generally starts with some issue about politics, cricket, but inevitably, to my horror, the conversation goes towards the market-related issues. And typically, somebody in the group would ask, market kya lagta hai? Then, somebody else will ask that I read somewhere that Sensex will go to such and such level by 2029. What do you think? Somebody else would ask, this particular stock, I saw it somewhere that this could go up 5 times in 3 years. What do you think? So these kind of questions I am bombarded with. Now, what I do, what I think, sort of truthfully and honestly, most of the times I tell them one of these, I don't know, it depends, I'm not sure. I know for a fact that most of my friends believe that I know, but not telling them. I wish that was true. So most of them, become disappointed, and most of them, sometimes also get angry that I'm not sharing whatever information I have with them. But my honest answer is a reflection of the fact that things are uncertain. In fact, uncertainty is the key characteristics, or I would say a defining characteristics of the markets. And I'm just reflecting that. But I can't really blame my friends because they see on TV channels, on YouTube channels, analysts and market experts talking very confidently that this particular stock will, or this particular company will see its earnings going up by 5 times in 3 years, or this particular stock becoming 10x in 5 years, or Sensex going to such and such level by 2029. So I can't really blame my friends from asking similar questions to me. Now, if you actually think about the future with all the layers of uncertainty, geopolitics, politics, and therefore how the policies will unfold, investor sentiment, how it will change, completely unpredictable, how the sectors will go through in terms of ups and downs. It's, I would say, almost impossible to say what's going to happen in the future. So my humble interpretation of the so-called market experts or analysts is that they're probably talking about what might happen in the future of all the n number of possible scenarios, right? It's very important to understand that when you're thinking about the future, it's path dependent. What happens next decides what happens after that. And there are, n number of possible outcomes. So when the market expert says that this is what I think will happen, what he is saying is that this is what might happen. Now, that's not a sure thing, and it's also not even a probable outcome. There are n number of outcomes that can happen. So in this environment where there is so much of uncertainty, unpredictability, and future is, in a sense, unknowable, how do you deal with the situation of making sense of what might happen in the future, and more importantly, try to generate returns from the market? Today, I'm going to share with you one approach that might be useful, the way you might want to think about the future. The title that I've given is Thinking of Long Term as a Series of Short Terms. I could have also put a title like Thinking in Cycles. Now, when you think about the future from this prism or using this construct, 2 things start to become very evident. So as I said, in markets, most things are uncertain, but I would say that there are 2 things where you can be actually very, very confident. the table or the chart that you see, some of you might have seen this chart. What this essentially says or shows is last 10 calendar years of actual returns. Here I have used NSE 500. So the dots that you see, black dots, are the NSE 500 returns in that particular year. The orange bars are the average returns of the top 3 performing sectors in that year, and the blue bars are the bottom 3 performing sectors of that year. Okay? So even if you glance at it, what becomes very evident is, one, whether the market is going up, going down, or is flat, there is always a big dispersion of returns among the sectors. Right? If you look at the leading sectors and lagging sectors, if you look at last 10 years, the minimum dispersion is 30%. Maximum is as much as 56%. So in any given year, and if you plot this kind of a chart for any market at any time, you will see this kind of a dispersion. If you look at 2008, which was the worst year, calendar year on record in history, you would, when NSE 500, I think, was down 57%, the dispersion between leading and lagging sectors was still 40%. So this is as close to a sure thing as we can get in the markets. So essentially, what I'm hinting at here is that there are alpha opportunities available to be exploited, no matter what the market is doing. The next slide is something which all of you are very familiar with, so I will not take too much time talking about it. Essentially, what this says is that no one sector always is at the top or at the bottom. And if you actually put lines connecting a particular sector across this period, you will see that there is an inherent cyclicality in the way sectors outperform and underperform. Now, this should come as no surprise, actually, because what drives these sectoral outperformances and underperformances are various factors that lie behind them. Pretty much everything that matters in our markets actually goes through cycles. Now, when experts that I alluded to earlier, when they talk about the future, they basically look at only the linear line, extrapolate the short term into the future. In reality, what happens is that everything fluctuates. I will give you a few examples. If you look at the macroeconomic variables, they fluctuate, right? Inflation rises and falls, interest rates rise and fall, and so on. If you look at various industries, they also go through their cycles. I think the most stunning example that I'm sure all of you will remember is the telecom industry. When cellular telephony opened up, when the growth started, especially when the prices fell, you had huge subscriber growth, as a result of which we had n number of players entering the market. At its peak, probably we had something like 15, 16 players in cellular telephony. And we know what happened over the last few years, and we have reached a situation where there are basically 3 or maybe 2.5 players left, right? So sectors also go through cycles. Similarly, and I can go on and on, technology also goes through their own cycles, individual technologies. Investor sentiments, and this is something that this group will associate with. Investor sentiments also go through cycles, from depths of panic to heights of euphoria. Now, individually, if you think about each of these cycles, they are very endogenous, the way they move. You can picture them or visualize them as if it's a pendulum going from one extreme to the middle and back again. On its own, sectors go through their ups and downs. But in reality, what happens is that many of these sectors, some of them I referred to in terms of macroeconomic cycles, corporate industry cycles, and so on, they interact with each other in a very, very complex way. And that actually manifests into the stocks and individual sectors going through their cycles of outperformance and underperformance. Why is this important? It's very, very important to internalize this. Why is it important? Because the conventional wisdom in our markets, the sort of statements that people say as if it's like, it's like laws of physics, is buy and hold is the best strategy. Now, I admit that at the asset class level, as an equity, I think buy and hold is a great idea. But is it equally applicable at the sectoral level or company level? I'm not so sure. And I will show you a few slides to disprove that statement. The other statement that you often hear is buy and sit tight. If you buy a good business with good management, there is nothing that you will have to worry about, right? I will show you a few slides to show how untrue that is. I can't unfortunately name the stocks, but some of you will be able to figure them out. If you look at, and all these companies are so-called blue chip companies, right? So if you look at the leading consumer company, over 10 years, it underperformed. All these are index charts. They start with 100, rebased to 100, Nifty as well as. So you will see that consumer company, if you look at one of the leading conglomerates, massively underperforming Nifty over long periods of time. Other two examples is a telecom company which basically gave 0 returns over 10 years, massively underperforming Nifty again, and an automobile company. So essentially, point is that investing with great businesses, with great managements, is no guarantee to generate outperformance. So what do we do? How do we confront this challenge that in uncertain, unpredictable markets, where future is virtually, unknowable, how do you try to generate outperformance? I will summarize. One is think in terms of long-term being a series of short terms. So when you're thinking about 10 years, think about 2 years, 1 year, or ideally think in terms of cycles. Second, recognize, acknowledge, and I would say embrace the inherent cyclicality in everything, right from sectors, companies to stocks. I have shown a sort of up cycle and down cycle. Third thing is, after embracing the inherent cyclicality in everything, the most important question to ask is, for a sector or for a stock, where are we currently in the cycle? That is the easiest question to ask, but the toughest question to answer. It's not easy to figure out where you are in the cycle. But if you develop enough evidence and conviction where you are in the cycle, the next step is to position your portfolio based on where you are in the cycle, right? So again, as I said, this sounds deceptively simple, but executing it is very, very difficult. And this is no guarantee that this will necessarily work. However, from my experience, I can tell you that if you remember these 3-4 principles that I talked about, long-term being series of short terms, everything is cyclical, try to answer where you are in the cycle, and then implement in the portfolio. Although it is no guarantee, I can definitely say with experience that significantly improves the odds of outperformance consistently. Thank you.